One of Reacher's most famous quotes has a darker, hidden meaning, and Season 3 confirms it. Reacher Season 3 confirms that one of Jack Reacher's most famous quotes is far darker than it seems. Since Prime Video's Reacher loyally adapts Lee Child's Jack Reacher books, it is not surprising that it also features many iconic quotes from the source material. From "Do it once and do it right" to "People leave me alone, I leave them alone," the show has featured variations of several original Jack Reacher lines from the books. While some of these quotes comically highlight how Jack Reacher is a man of few words, others seem to capture how seriously he takes his crime-solving endeavors. One repetitive quote from the Amazon Prime Video detective series almost comes off as a harmless joke, highlighting how Jack Reacher perceives his constant encounters with criminals and morally corrupt individuals. However, a close look at the quote reveals a dark truth about the character. Season 3 proves Reacher's "trouble finds me" line is darker than it seems. Jack Reacher's troubles rarely stay with him and often put others in danger. However, even when he meant well, trouble found him and affected Cole in the worst possible way. Even in Reacher Season 2, Guy Russo faced the consequences of getting too involved in Reacher's world. The deeper he got into Reacher's troubles, the more he found himself in the crosshairs of dangerous people like Langston. Ultimately, he too met with a tragic fate in one of Reacher Season 2's ending arcs, proving that Jack Reacher's troubles rarely stay with him and often put others in danger. Reacher's best ending would be a life free from trouble. Time and again, the Alan Ritchson character has established that he wishes to live a simple life as a hobo. In Season 3, he even hints at how his father's frugal, no-nonsense lifestyle inspires him to live a life free from the complications of wealth and societal expectations. Reacher's desire for simplicity contrasts all the violence and tragedy he encounters during his crime-solving endeavors. Therefore, even though his strong sense of justice always leads him to trouble, it seems like Reacher would be more content with his life if it were free from constant chaos. Given how Reacher is gradually becoming one of Amazon Prime Video's most valuable IPs, it seems unlikely that it will end anytime soon. However, if it ends someday, it should conclude with Jack Reacher finally settling for a more peaceful life and avoiding trouble. All the tragedies and loss he experienced throughout his journey would then not be in vain. When Jack Reacher delivers a line, it tends to stick. His words are sparse, deliberate, and weighted, much like the man himself. But among all the memorable quotes from Reacher, the Amazon Prime series based on Lee Child's best-selling novels, one particular line has resonated louder and longer than most. Greater than, "You don't have to break the law to break the rules." It's classic Reacher, a pithy, sharp-edged sentiment that perfectly encapsulates his moral code, or what looks like one on the surface. The line, which first surfaced in Season 1 adapted from Killing Floor, has echoed throughout both subsequent seasons, including the freshly released Season 3, where it takes on an eerier, more unsettling tone than ever before. For casual fans, the quote sounds like a rebel's mantra, an anti-establishment zinger about bending conventions and outsmarting rigid authority. But for longtime readers of Lee Child's novels, and now viewers of the TV show's latest season, the words hint at something far darker about Jack Reacher's worldview, and perhaps even about the man himself. Season 3 doesn't just remind us of this quote. It forces us to reconsider what it really means. Reacher's code, simpler than it seems? At first glance, Reacher's line seems to echo an age-old anti-hero ethos. There's the law, and then there's what's right. When Reacher says, "You don't have to break the law to break the rules," he positions himself as a man walking a gray line, someone who understands that justice and legality don't always align. The rules are the small, bureaucratic restrictions that get in the way of doing what's necessary. The law, theoretically, is the higher-order framework that Reacher still respects, even if he skirts its edges. Fans of the books recognize this as a defining trait of the character. Reacher is former military police, not a rogue in the traditional sense, but someone who knows procedure better than most, and who also knows when to toss the rule book in the trash. He doesn't kill indiscriminately. He doesn't steal out of greed. But he will absolutely punch first if someone needs punching. And when Reacher says the quote to Roscoe in Season 1, it sounds charming, as if he's merely encouraging her to see the bigger picture. But Season 3 cracks open a darker truth. Season 3's Persuader arc forces a re-evaluation. The third season of Reacher adapts Persuader, one of the grittier and more personal novels in Lee Child's series. The plot sees Reacher going undercover, off the books, to infiltrate a dangerous smuggling operation and take down Francis Xavier Quinn, a ghost from his past believed to be long dead. Throughout Season 3, Reacher is more ruthless than we've ever seen him. His vendetta against Quinn isn't just professional, it's deeply personal. What becomes clear as the episodes progress is that Reacher isn't merely breaking rules in the bureaucratic sense, he's crossing moral lines under the banner of his own sense of justice. Torture, intimidation, deception, all justified, at least to him, because Quinn has to be stopped. It's no coincidence that in Episode 6, as Reacher interrogates a terrified informant, he repeats the same famous line, this time without the glint of charm, without the protective shield of noble intentions. The delivery is cold and mechanical. You don't have to break the law to break the rules. Suddenly, it doesn't sound like a rebel's quip. It sounds like a rationalization. The darker meaning, Reacher's self-authorization, Season 3 subtly but insistently shows us what longtime book readers have always suspected. Reacher's code isn't really about balancing rules and justice. It's about authorizing himself to do whatever he deems necessary without oversight, without consequence. You don't have to break the law to break the rules morphs from a tactical observation into a philosophical loophole. For Reacher, rules are simply any structures, social, moral, procedural, that get in the way of what he thinks is right. And the more personal the case, the more aggressively he justifies ignoring those boundaries. In Persuader, both the novel and the show, this self-authorization becomes razor clear. Reacher isn't working with law enforcement. He's operating solo, under no jurisdiction, with no backup. Everything he does, surveillance, assault, even murder, is done under the belief that his judgment is infallible. The hidden meaning, then, is this: Reacher doesn't just bend rules because he has to. He bends them because he wants to. Because trusting himself above all else has become second nature and dangerously addictive. Why fans of the books always saw it coming, longtime Reacher readers aren't surprised by this evolution. Lee Child often walked this fine line in the novels, painting Reacher as a hero whose nobility could, at any moment, veer into obsession or self-righteousness. In Persuader, Reacher admits in his internal narration that he enjoys the violence sometimes more than he should. He acknowledges that his single-minded pursuit of Quinn isn't purely about justice. It's about unfinished business. Revenge. Control. The TV series, unshackled from first-person narration, shows us this through Alan Ritchson's increasingly stoic and detached portrayal. Season 3 leans into the unsettling truth. Reacher's rules are flexible because he is the one setting them. Season 3 confirms the hidden danger. By the end of Season 3, Reacher succeeds. Quinn is neutralized and the smuggling ring is dismantled. On paper, it's a victory. But the final scenes are less triumphant and more reflective. When Neagley Maria Sten confronts Reacher about how far he went, about how much collateral damage he was willing to accept, there's no apology in his answer. Only that same line,